Dun, 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 dun.
It's so loud. Holy cow. Oh, man. I can't hear. Everyone, I'm sorry if you can't hear now. Bob welcomed us to the intro. Or not to the intro, but to the live stream, and now we can't hear. So I am working on the audio. Last time we had a little audio, so give me feedback if audio is good, audio is bad. I've been tweaking things, but
What do you call the Kazi audience? The Kazires? The Kazanits?
that's a good. I feel like we've talked about.
Is there like a name?
No, there isn't. There probably should be.
Like Kazinetis or something?
Kazians.
Kazians? Kazians?
Josh is agile says Kazians.
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 All right.
Yeah.
Hello, Kazians. I'm back.
Oh, do you guys see what I deal with? Like, so we just did an episode, and there's always this moment where Bob turns into like showman Bob, and it's a loud version of Bob. Like there's times.
Kazingos. Oh, I like Kazingos. Kazingos.
Feel like you were bordering on inappropriate there with some sort of.
No, I
No?
just read it.
Okay,
I just
all right.
there's no. I just like it though.
Yeah. Okay.
Kazingo. I am a Kazing.
Oh gosh. Okay. So today's topic, as you can see, it's another free for all Friday. We aren't preloaded with a topic. We do have Bob. Bob, for those of you that have been here, you just give him a little nudge, just a little nudge, and he's off and running for what would you say, 20,
a
30
minute, a minute or two.
A minute.
Wow. I'm terse. I'm thoughtful. I'm
thoughtful,
pointed,
yes. Terse, no.
Pointed. So what do we got? Give us.
So yeah. So let's
tease us. Throw us a worm.
We will
Come
help
on.
you.
Cast it.
That's what this is
Cast
about.
it into the water. Come on, bring it on. You have the big head and the little head here.
Who's who? I know you take cheap shots about the size of my head.
I'm probably not.
You're not exactly.
I have a pretty solid cranium.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I know.
It's just total mass. Like I think it's proportional
yes.
to total mass. Just
You're,
my overall...
You know, you called me on it. You know what? Finally,
yeah.
You called me on it because I do have a pretty significant cranium, and I and it's pretty hard as well. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Josh's Agile is getting some context here. I'm excited. I feel like it's been a while since Josh.
User story writing. I want so that done.
This is one of those. I want to say lost art, but I don't think it was ever found in many places. I think that's where people struggle. Well, that's okay. You don't have to be sorry. You got life, Josh. Welcome back. Good to have you.
So I do think on the story side, when there's not a lot of good examples in books or on the web. I don't think there's story trees. There's story examples, but not really backlog, like groupings of epics and features and stories, and the connection between them. I don't think there's good examples out there. There never have been. It's an exercise to you to build it. So I always think that when I do classes, I almost apologize. I give them story basics, but then it's like you just have to write them. You just write lots of them and get experience, and you have to write yours, and you have to write them badly. You have to figure out how deeply to write them. You know what I'm saying? And what a good acceptance criteria are for your. So what I'm getting at is I think your user story writing is a practiced art, not an academic art. And that frustrates a lot of people. And you get better the more you write. And you're going to write crappy ones in the beginning, and that'll make it hard to execute and things.
Yeah.
And then you just keep slogging at it. What do you think?
So I get it. And Josh is up against something that I see everyone struggle with. It's how do I write a good story for something that's technical, for an integration or for something like that. So the only way I've gotten there is you have to understand who the user is. So I just keep coming back to who the consumer is. So as a system or as Salesforce, I need this information so that I can do something. So oftentimes we we try and force it into, as a human, I need something. But in reality, you're trying to connect these two systems together. So one system needs data from another system so it can do something. Oftentimes that's under the covers, and this is a huge stumbling block for architects, for technical leaders that are trying to wrap business value around technical things they're trying to do, for a new framework they want to install, or for a refactor, or for something. So stop taking the classic view of, as a person I need something, as a system I need this so I can deliver this. So think of it like that, and I think you'll have a better chance. But that's one of those things that's always challenging. And to Bob's point, everywhere I've been, it's taken about 6 months for an engineering team to get good at writing these technical stories. The as you pointed out, the UI centric stories, it's more natural, it's more comfortable. Feel like you can figure that out. But these where it's messy, you can actually send a pic. Let's see, best way to send that pic.
The other thing is, I put a link to a blog post I wrote a few years ago about technical user stories, and I think they're different than user stories. So it's like Josh was saying, not extending the user story model to adapt to like the nuance of a technical story. Like non-UI would be a trivial way of saying it. And I think I have an example or two of what a technical user story would look like and how to construct them in that blog post. So take a look at that. That might provide some guidance. The other article in my blog that might even be related is I talk about technical product ownership. So there's two related thoughts. Technical product ownership, meaning what do you do like if you have a refactoring story? I think someone like an architect might be the quasi product owner for that and write that story, which is different because it's a refactoring story, but has technical nature.
Yeah.
And then there's technical user stories. So I'll dig that up and I'll put that link in too.
Yeah. So there's a couple things there I want to talk through. We have in my past defined who the PO is going to be for that story. To Bob's point, like we don't always default that the product owner is going to PO this story because maybe they don't have the knowledge and the skill set to validate did the AC actually get met. Like maybe I have to go in Postman and run these things and then go look at the database and validate that it's encrypted and blah 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 blah. All of these things. It's not fair to put that on that product owner. So there's that. Also, something that one of the teams I work with now has adopted, and this was spurred on by the product owner. They've started to do technical refinement. So there's these stories that happen that come up, and the product owner is kind of in that realm of, oh crap, I don't know, so I need your help to refine that. So they have dedicated time where coming up in refinement, they talk about it. They said, okay, we need to have a technical refinement session where they go and figure that out. So there's additional work that can be done to help something come a reality like you're looking for. So give that a shot. Yeah, if you drop that in Discord, let me know, Josh, and we'll figure that out. We'll help. I think I can get it on stream, maybe. Feel creative I can get. So yeah, those technical stories are always a stumbling block, and product folks have to really dig in. I was in a great session a couple weeks ago where there's this large technical effort that we're doing, and we got the architects together and the product, and actually the director of PM, who's fantastic. We all got together, and the architects were talking through things and trying to explain to the product manager, director of product managers, why this was important. And that unique skill that person has, as I mentioned, this person is really good, boiled it down and said, oh, okay, so you're trying to do this, which gets us this, which in turn delivers this. I can sell the crap out of that.
Right.
So then that provided clarity for the architect, and they said, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. But I don't do this user story stuff every day. So connecting those groups, that's a huge thing. And make sure that it's a dialogue and accept who's good at what, understand and get help. That's where a lot of people just kind of try and brute force it. Becomes a problem. So that's an issue.
What is it, Bellurion?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Bellurion talks about in a comment like acceptance criteria, extending an original story for technology with acceptance, and I make that case, not exactly that one, but I think technical stories, instead of amplifying the story part, the as AI wants so that, I think the richness of the acceptance criteria is where to make your investment. So for technical stories, if you're investing in the as AI wants so that the story, versus if you're embedding technical constraints and requirements, then the acceptance criteria get really boosted up and much more important, or a place to put that rich dialogue, right?
I gotcha. Okay, I'm gonna see how to get this. Can you keep rolling while I try and help Josh out and get this?
I'll try.
I know it'll be difficult for you.
I don't know if there's anything else to say. I think we've talked about this. I'm waiting for the pick.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get the pick on stream.
If there's any other questions or something, folks. So Kazingos. If you have any other ideas or any other questions, I can try to touch on them and buy Josh some time. So throw me a softball though. Give me something easy.
Yeah, you can't give me anything difficult.
Story points. Are they relative or fixed? Hey, Kazingos, they're relative, or they're fixed. Josh is agile. I'm trying to understand what level of detail the story should be at. This is going to sound trite and silly, but I mean it. They should be as lightweight as you can possibly get away with. So the stories should be lightweight, which will then drive to high rate discussion. So there are going to be multiple levels. You're going to go from epic to feature. So start top down, if that makes sense. So try not to build bottom up, like story, feature, epic, if that's the hierarchy. I found it is more useful to break things down, decompose from the top down. So start with epics, then break them down into features, then break them down into stories. So that's one thing that'll help. And then the level of detail in any one of those is try to make them as lightweight as possible. Yes, have acceptance criteria, and yes, have the story writing, if you will. But make sure, like, I want people to ask more questions. I want them to complain. I want them to, to feel uncomfortable. So lightweight story writing, like agile requirements, you want to be comfortable with ambiguity. So the team has to get comfortable not being spoon-fed every freaking aspect of the story, which means less writing, which means write at a high level and allow people to ask questions, and talk about what do we have to understand right now in order to estimate it versus what do we understand, like the entire process of the story. Gosh, there's a picture I wish I could show everyone. Can't do that here, right?
So I'm able to show this picture that Josh sent in Agile. Josh sent Discord. I'll get my words to line up correctly. I don't know what all this is, so you may have to translate for us, Josh, a little bit. I want to go back to Berlion's question about testing. So to me, those testing stories or other things like that, that's just technical supportive work. I think any work that you need to do that isn't directly related to delivering perceived user value, it doesn't mean it doesn't deliver user value, but it's harder to perceive without truly understanding. So it's in support of those other features. Those need to be stories just as well, and they need to work in the same way as everything else. Like we talked about, those acceptance criteria are going to be harder, but think about the systems and how they need each other to interact and to perform well, and then connect those together, and I think you'll have a better shot.
So Brave Dave, I don't know if I'm insisting. I personally like to, so when I do a story brainstorming workshop with a client, we brainstorm all levels at the same time. So depending on what people are writing, you get epics, you get features, and you get stories. So we try to lay them out graphically and then look for relationships. Now, what I try to do is influence people to write the higher level things first, to then beget the stories from that. But I mean, we get what we get. So if there's stories, then we'll have some stories, and I want to connect the dots. So I'm not saying always start top down, but sort of start with just write all of the stories that come to mind, brainstorm, and then get the hierarchy from that, but have lineage towards the top down. And what I'm saying is, I think it's harder to go into the weeds and then to figure out the big picture, right? And to drive that, I think you'll get gaps. Now, you might color code things or change it along the way where you identify this is an epic. So if I had 3 swim lanes when we're doing the brainstorming, it would be like epic level, feature level, and then story level, and then see how things sort of cascade into that. Josh is Agile.
So let's go back.
Following that? Yeah.
So I'm going to put the picture up there.
This is a nice conversation today,
Yeah.
I like this.
We got a great group, my friend.
Exactly.
So let's see. Blue stickies are the big chunks type of work, and green stickies are the smaller chunks. So I do think, and just after a quick glance, I do think, depending on how the stories become, the green would be your AC, and the blue are really, this is the type of data I'm trying to bring into Salesforce so that marketing can do X, Y, and Z. Like I need to bring in the accounts. Then I need to bring in CIF, whatever that is. I don't know. Then I have to get the roles. I have to get, gosh, can't read. I gotta get my face closer to the screen. Yeah, so that's where I would start, and it feels like that's kind of the direction that you're going. So you talk about, as a marketing team, we want deposit accounts so that we can market to those customers. Then the AC are those fields. I don't know if the green equate to those fields. Hey, listen, your handwriting's better than mine, so don't worry about it. And so maybe each one of those green stickies is big enough that it's its own story, and the blue is the epic or something like that. That on the far left side, so under accounts, deposits, maybe deposits is a freaking beast to pull over. So you have the accounts, you have the why, and then you have the why around the deposits of this is what they're going to do with the data. And that's something that is going to be a really good question, because you talked about higher up where marketing would be like, I can give you 1 million stories, but it's like, okay, do you need them all? Like, what are you going to do with all that data? Do you need that data right now? Are you prepared to consume it? Is it ready to go? So I think you can use some of those discussions to figure that out.
I'm concerned about leading with data. So what I'm hearing here, hear me out. So
But the problem is data.
No, the problem is, what problem are we trying to solve?
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
Right. And what functionality are we trying to implement? And is it high level epic, low level story? Is it hierarchical? And then the data would be driven from that. So solution, what data do I need? In fact, I wouldn't even highlight the data. That's an implementation. My reaction, and you smack me around, but my reaction is, this may be a mistake of getting involved in the data.
Mm-hmm.
To me, you could look at it as an implementation detail for the team, and then focus just on the blue stories.
Yeah.
And trying to make them more functional, like linear, but end to end or whatever, functional.
Right.
So the stories are functional, and the data to me is implementation details.
Yeah. But it gets back to sitting down with your marketing partners and understanding what they're going to do with that data. Are they ready to act on it? Forget the data. What are they trying to do?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the difference. Yeah. And they may say data and say,
forget the data.
Forget the data. That's my job. I mean, with all due respect, I know the data. You can give me fields. You can give me data. But what problem are you trying to solve hierarchically?
Yeah.
Let's do that functional map first, and then we'll derive the data. Yeah. And then if you really want to talk about the data, then join our sprints as we're evolving the data, right? I wonder if that's a different... I'm sort of saying going into the data might be going into the weeds too soon.
Well, and that's a good point, right? Because then the conversation goes into those weeds, and you get into the details, and it becomes messy and harder to figure out. Whereas if you can refocus on... what's the we go back to the podcast we just talked about. Like, what is the problem you're trying to solve?
Exactly. And again, people may want to, depending on your clients or whoever's defining it, they may want to go there. So it may be really hard to. We just did a Metacast, everyone, that was talking about simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
So another way of saying it is going into the data is complexity too soon. I try to draw them up as much, and just because they want to go there, I would respectfully try to get them up out of the weeds, right, as much as possible, or at least sort of defer those discussions to later. There was a question here.
So, like Josh is asking, how do I get them at the right level? I'm trying to market to this age level and that age level. So it's. So I think it's boiling it down to what are their drivers? What are the problems they're trying to solve? Then it's up to you and your team to deliver on the how, right? So they are asking the what. I think it's perfectly okay for them to ask, we are trying to market by age because we found that some of our messaging falls on deaf ears when it's in this age group versus this age group. So we want to deliver a different message for, it's the hot topic now, for baby boomers versus Generation Z or whatever those are, right? So we gotta prevent the okay boomer moments. Like,
But I want, but the functionality is I want to do age or generational directed emails.
Right.
Stop. Right.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
And so as a marketer, I want to do age directional emails, and then why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? What's the business why for that? So what's the so that clause?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's actually using the story template in this case might be helpful, like forcing them into the story template and then define that, which is actually teasing that apart. Now, in the acceptance criteria, you could say, you could ask questions like, how many generations?
Yeah.
Right.
What are your age ranges?
What are your age rate? And I wouldn't go crazy about it, but then defer that. So now you have this, now that gives you clarity around what problem, right? What functionality are we trying to solve, right? What's the point of it? The other thing with that is the so that clause is really important, I think.
Yeah.
Like what?
But often skimped on.
Yeah. Like why the hell? I mean, not confrontationally, I get excited about it, but what's in it for your customer? Well, like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
What's the ROI on that?
I agree.
Have we caught up?
I think so.
I think it's this functional thing.
Yeah. I do think if you can, again, go back to basics, go back to the simplicity of the story as and of itself, really drive home on the so that. There's so many places, so many stories where I want this.
Yeah.
And there's not a so that. And people just begin asking for everything, and they inherently create this impossible timeline that it can't be done.
Burlurion.
We're gonna get it right. We're gonna figure it out.
I don't know, but there's a comment. I love your comments about as little as possible. I still squirm and feel unprepared when the team reviews my stories. I wanted to react to that. That's right. So ambiguity is, I think there's like training you and the team to get comfortable with your uncomfortableness and getting comfortable with ambiguity. Everyone squirms. In fact, if you're squirming, I think that means you have directional soundness, right? So when you stop squirming, maybe this is a measure. When you stop squirming and feeling comfortable with the words, you've probably written too much. Right? When everyone is leaving the room with hysteria, you've probably written too little. But uncomfortable and squirming is probably the right level of story writing at that time. What do you think?
I agree. And it's getting, I think if you are uncomfortable enough, you end up seeing the value that is generated by that uncomfortable nature for you. I know it's hard and I know it's painful. But I think what you'll find is that as you do that over and over, you generate the healthy, important conversation that has to happen. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. People just nod and say, okay,
exactly,
whatever you say, that's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's just do it. It's a 4. Away we go.
The other part of that discomfort is saying, we don't need to know that now. We'll figure it out later. The picture I was going to say, there was a guy that did a chart, an Agile coach, and I'll try to paint a picture of it, but he talked about 20% of story clarity. So you need to get stories to 20% clarity by the time they enter sprint planning. and I believe this is a little extreme. Then he said
Okay.
within sprint planning, you go from 20% clarity to like 60% clarity. Then during the execution of the sprint, you go from 60% to 100%. Now, I usually talk about entering the sprint at like 70%. You've heard me talk about
Mhm.
that. So I thought I want a little bit more clarity free. But what he's saying is they're not stories. There's this, it's sort of different way of looking at requirements. It's like a curve. The instance of a story up until the point where you actually deliver it, you're filling in the details all along this arc,
Mhm.
and it's a long arc.
Yeah.
So that's part of the don't do too much. It's intentional, and part of that is to drive conversation, right?
Now I'm kind of the opposite of whoever that person was. I actually 70% had refinement. Then a bulk of the work.
See, that's even more extreme. That
Yeah. So then a bulk of the work is done in refinement, and then in planning,
Oh, I think that's premature.
we're closer to
Oh, I disagree
we
with
are
you.
closer to 90%.
You are
And then that
prematurely.
last 10%.
That's way off, Josh. Oh my God,
No, it's not.
that's wrong.
You're
That's
way too happy about disagreeing with
I
me.
don't get a chance to disagree with you that often.
I know I'm right a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
No, but no, and honestly do it. But I'm laughing, but I'm like happy because I disagree with you. I
Yeah.
found a point that you and I are like far apart.
It is rare. Yeah.
And it's rare. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is cool. I disagree with it.
The number of times we've started with a topic for our podcast and we're so thrilled because we think we're opposing in such dramatic ways and we're excited to argue and provide
and
this
then we
diverse
agree.
dialogue, and like 10 minutes in you see this look on our face and it's just really annoying because like, damn it, we agree. So how are we going to make this exciting now? So that's a challenge. Agile Jamie Collins, he's back.
Thank you, Jamie.
Oh, don't agree with Bob.
Exactly. I mean, again, there's no magic numbers, but it's sort of your lineage, right? And that has challenged me. I think 20% is light to go into sprint planning. I mean, do you know what? I mean, think about that.
Yeah, I am terribly uncomfortable with that.
Exactly. 20% clarity going into sprint planning.
Yeah. Which is why I go for 70 for refinement and then about 90 sprint planning, and then that last 10% happens in magic.
For Lurion, you bring up this Kanban point where it probably changes like your story readiness for the ready queue and things like that. Of what is our percent clarity or what is our percent readiness in getting, because stories still they have to be prepared, right, to enter the board, if you will.
Yeah. So the product owners that I work with, we have a separate Kanban board that each of them manages, where they manage the flow of stories through the process, getting them ready for sprint.
Yeah.
So in Kanban, there's no sprint, but it's like ready to be worked.
Correct.
So they have this column where we call it POing, where it's like they're doing their work, getting stuff ready.
Yep.
Then when it's ready, it goes into the ready for refinement column. That's where in refinement, which Kanban team should do as well, the team works through that queue of things to be refined, and then when they're comfortable with it and it's ready for sprint, because we do Scrum, then it goes into the ready for sprint column, and then that shows up on the team's board. So I think a Kanban team ends up doing the same thing, and you can manage it the same way. There's a lot of places that I go that don't enable other parts of the organization to model work through tools like Trello and Jira.
Right.
They just do it like, well, yeah, you just figure it out. It's like, why? If we've decided it's the best way for this group of people to move work from left to right with this
Right.
tool, why don't we just allow them
Right.
to do it as well?
Yeah.
So we build out the entire life cycle of the product, of a feature, of an idea to go through that.
I mean, I think that one of the things I want to respond, and Agile Jamie says I broadly agree with it. It's not the percentages, but it's don't write too much too soon.
Yeah.
And put ambiguity pressure on yourselves. So back to this, we were squirming. Embrace that. So I don't care. It's the numbers are nice, but it's like I think teams have a tendency to write too much too soon, and that's that historical comfort zone.
Yeah.
And try an experiment even. Like just try one story and try writing less and seeing what happens during execution. What does it change?
Well, I think that's a great.
So Brave Dave says, I have one team who is notorious for taking stories to death, talking them to death before estimating I mean, that's the point, Dave. That's to me that's indicative of that waterfall mindset where we're trying to get 100% guarantees of understanding it rather than letting the implementation expose that and emerge understanding. But that's our comfort zone. So I think almost every team has to fight from writing too much. They have to move from my comfort and my inclination is writing too much.
I think fight's an okay term.
Yeah.
Like it's an internal struggle.
Yeah.
And you have to calm yourself down.
Absolutely.
You have to be willing to put yourself out there and try.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And actually trust in the organization.
Yeah.
Because you're like actually starting work and not knowing what the hell's going on, right? You don't have every I dotted and every T crossed, but people are observing what you're doing. So it's uncomfortable depending on the organizational culture is a part of it, right? Like managers' expectations.
So that is a good point, because I think about the things I say to the teams that I'm coaching, and what I try and get them to is coming out of refinement, which means it's ready for a sprint or ready to be worked. That my expectation is that an engineer can confidently grab that thing off the top of the list and start working it.
Yep.
So you get to that point where it sounds like a team like Brave Dave has, is that hurdle for confidence is really high.
Yeah.
So how do you as a coach work with them to get comfortable lowering that bar with, this is the confidence I need to get started? It might be organizational, it might be coaching. I think Bob's concept of run an experiment with one story, just get them to try it. Like pick one, not terribly risky, have them try it and see what happens. I think that's a fantastic approach that you could take, Brave Dave.
What do you think about what Valerian said? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to get that right for the whole day.
No, I know. Me too. I'm going to start saying Burl.
And I'm trying. I'm actually trying.
Well, it's like you try too hard, right?
Yeah, maybe
because you want to get it right.
I know.
So I'm just going with Burl.
Okay.
It's easier. It's less for me to stumble
react
over.
to that. Like one size fits all socks. And in the case of you, Josh, it would be super big or something like that.
So this is an interesting discussion, Burl, and I had a fantastic team. 2 years ago, and it was like I handpicked them all, and they were really good. We had worked together before, so everybody had clear expectations. They knew what a good story looked like, and they behind the scenes had been discussing, these story points, like, I don't know that it makes any sense anymore for us. And like they were afraid to put it on the table. And I put it on the table one day just asking, like, hey, do we need story points anymore? Like, does it really matter? What value does it provide to us? And we talked about it, and the team in the end decided to keep story points because they found that it drove the dialogue that they felt was required to really refine a story well. They thought it became too much of a layup to just say, yeah, it's ready. But they felt that when they were forced to assign a story point value to it and then talk about that with their peers, it forced them to talk through and really in their mind process things and really think about it and be ready for when I said 1, 2, 3 for them to throw up a 5.
Right.
And then have that person sitting next to them that threw up a 2 and looking like, what are you talking about? Like, how is that? They were uncomfortable with removing the dialogue because they didn't know how they were going to generate that same dialogue when they could be just like, yeah, it's ready.
Right.
So I've been around that circle, and I've found that really high-performing teams understand the value of that dialogue in refinement, and story point is often the tool to ensure that it happens. So that's my experience. But that's me. And not every team's the same, right? So that's the thing. That's why so much of what I've moved towards in the past couple of years has been sharing my experience and not trying to give direct advice of go do this.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't have the entire context of everything that's going on with your company, your team, all those things, right? Like we talked about the different funding models in the podcast and how that drives different behaviors.
Well, I mean, I think we generally provide examples and then generic advice, right? That's our lineage, right? We have stories,
right?
And then we try to boil it. You're good at this, at boiling it down.
I'm just trying to corral you.
Yeah, well, that's part of it as well. It's true. For later, oh my God, I can't even do that one. Burl.
What are you doing to us, Josh? Like that does
Josh.
not.
I mean, come on, Josh.
That does not help. Yeah. So Burl, that's what we did. Was I put it on the table and I said, hey, let's talk about this. There's an option we could do, and you could try it, right? So maybe you try it for a couple months, and the teams come back and say, okay, that was a disaster. Like we should not do that anymore. It's worth being courageous and trying things, but being honest about it and being willing to say, oh crap, we were wrong. I think as long as you and your team are comfortable doing that, then give it a shot. For us, we talked about it, and the team realized that, hey, this probably isn't the right move. So they stuck with it. That option.
That's a very balanced and harmonious answer, Josh.
Go ahead, show them.
What?
Show them.
What? No.
No, you have to show them.
What?
The candle.
So Josh is.
This is not product placement. I want you to know, as the owner of this channel, you have to give it a minute because it's delayed.
I just have a candle that Josh is making me show. It's an essential oils mood candle. So I wanted Josh and I to be of a specific mood, and it's entitled Balance and Harmony. So Josh and I are in balance and harmony.
No, we're not. Especially on the candle.
No,
we're not harmonious and not in balance about the candle.
You're all feisty about it.
I have been since you introduced the concept last time I was here.
I just have fun with your discomfort, right? It's like you are so uncomfortable with it. Enough of that.
Yeah. So for those of you that are wondering,
I'm experimenting, everyone.
Yeah, man.
I'm just trying to set the mood in here.
No, we don't have matching candles.
No.
Bob's like pushing this candle.
It's setting the mood in the office.
No, he tried to send one home with me last time I was here, and the number of candles.
A gift. No, let's reframe. I tried to give you a gift, a heartfelt gift, and you rejected it.
I did reject.
You did.
Cold-hearted rejection.
You look like it was giving you a dead fish or something.
I've got a history with candles and with essential oils, and my wife, my daughter, and now all my other kids.
And now Bob.
You thought
I was You thought this was a safe island here.
Yeah. I thought, oh man, I'll go see my buddy Bob. We'll talk about stuff. We'll have fun.
And then he brought out the candle.
And now essential oil candles. Oh man,
see, Burl, where's the courage to try it? Do a try.
I have tried it at home against my will many times, and really, I have no issue with the candles. The issue is what it's done to my bank account.
Oh yes.
Yeah, like that's where it hits me. It hits me on my bank account. The dollars that have been spent on essential oils and candles pain me.
Oh, Jamie Collins, thank you. That's exactly the chart that I was referencing. Thank you for the link. I lost the link for the darn thing. Thank you for that. I've used the picture. Jamie. And nice again, work. It's the intent of it. I like how aggressively, that's an aggressive chart. That has an aggressive mindset, right? That really drives ambiguity. Thanks, Jamie. What else we got? I think that was a nice story and for a level discussion.
Would you say it was balanced and harmonious?
I would.
All right. So, thanks for everyone for being involved in this discussion. Thanks for those of you that have shared your Twitch Prime subscriptions. That is the thing that keeps us going, helps us pay the bills, get some new cameras, get some microphones, all those things. So thank you very much. If you have Amazon Prime, you can hit that subscribe button up above, and it's connected with Twitch. It's free. Subscribe for free with Twitch Prime.
You sound like a commercial, for God's sakes.
I know. Well, that's because I'm a heavy Twitch user.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I'm a big consumer.
Okay.
Big consumer. So yeah, this is the thing. It's like Patreon for those of you that we have some Patreons that are out there that help support us.
Yeah.
So it's.
I just.
Look at that.
Your voice changed.
There we go. Earl, he did it.
But your voice changed. It was like sounded like a.
Thank you, Burl.
A salesman.
It's kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
You know what was interesting? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Why is it a red X for a new subscriber? Gosh, I feel like I should change that alert. Um, I took a Strength Finders test, something that we're doing.
Did you take Strength Finders?
Yeah, and I had never done Strength Finders.
Do you have your results?
I do.
Bring them in to the next Metacast. I just did it not that. I've done it historically.
Is that so? I've done all these different strength things in my life. There's the Great Dave, you're the man. 9 months. Thank you.
Strength Finders is from Gallup.
Yeah,
the Gallup.
Yeah,
folks.
there's like 35 things,
and they have a nice report and the top five. Let's do that in the next Metacast.
Yeah.
And let's duke it out on the strengths, or not duke it out, but talk about the insights.
Yeah. I had never done that one before, so that was new to me, and I really struggled to answer some of those questions because
they're weird. They're like balance questions, right?
It was hard because to your point of like the salesmanship, right? Like I just had to do that. I don't like it, but I do it. So like there's like different versions of Josh. There's like startup Josh. This is building the product on Mondays and Fridays. Then there's day job Josh.
I got to pay the bills, Josh.
Then there's podcast host Josh.
So you're sort of a
more
thought
of
leader,
an extrovert, more of all those things.
But thought leading,
yeah. Whereas it's like, okay, I'm getting asked this question: are you this or this? And it's like, well, which hat do I have on? Do I have startup hat on, or do I have day job Josh, or am I the podcast host? Like what?
Yeah.
So that was really hard for me.
Let's compare our strengths next time, and let's surprise each other.
I think my strengths are stronger.
No, that's not the point.
No, it is.
No, you are stronger.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
I just want to make sure we're clear.
We're clear.
That my strengths are stronger.
That was not a harmonious.
It wasn't intended
comment,
to be.
Was it?
It was not intended.
That was you're trying to egg me on.
It was establishing.
But I'm just calm. I'm just really calm about it. So Brave Dave. So who? Brave Dave. 9 months. Yeah. Like slam dunk.
I know. That's amazing.
That's cool.
That's amazing.
So release planning. What's an appropriate way to tackle it, and how do you handle stakeholders who want a totally not waterfall hard release date? I mean, that's a rich. I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, there's some references for release planning, Brave Dave. There's a guy, Joe Little. I'll try to find some links. He's written about a lean pub book on it, and I wouldn't reference it. I don't agree with everything he talks about, but he talks about release planning in like 90 pages. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty rich. It's a historical topic because the XP folks did release planning differently. So what I would recommend is becoming a student of release planning. Look at some of the stuff that's out there. Get Joe's book. I have a chapter or two on it in my product owner book. Mm-hmm. I give you an e-copy, a free copy if you email me. But I'd say read up about it because there's a lot of talking, and it's the basis for PI planning. So release planning historically sort of led into SAFE's PI planning. And then the hard release date thing, I think actually if you include them in the release planning, they can understand the risk associated. So you can actually I think most teams can draw a cut line in release planning and say, we have full confidence that we can deliver 8 features, right? In a quarterly, in PI planning, a lot of folks exit PI planning with confidence. So it's not unfair to say, where's our confidence? As we go down, we have high confidence that we can do 5 features. We have moderate confidence that we can do 8, and we have 0 confidence that we can do 10. So leadership team, you probably want to plan for 5 and commit to 5, or maybe, if you want to take a risk with us, maybe 6 or something like that. But the fact that they participated and observed the release planning can help them get a dose of reality. So I think doing release planning, then getting the stakeholders to participate in it, which is not too onerous, mm-hmm. and the intent of PI planning, that might actually help sort of balance that. But the other side of it is, don't be afraid. I mean, agile teams need to commit to dates to some degree, don't they? I mean, we're not in a vacuum. We're not in a. I don't think it's like, well, we don't know. I don't think that's a good answer for anyone. Like if you were building a house, Josh, mm-hmm. right? I'll build your house, Josh. I just don't know when I'll be done. And I don't know if you're going to go with me. So we need to be able to communicate something with confidence, maybe ranges.
Yeah. So you and I have
We have differing opinions. I can tell.
argued on this before.
Are
This
we
has
gonna
been a comment? No, we've done
done
episodes
this.
and episodes of
I was
this.
hoping. Are we going to
And
like
you
have two?
make fun of me, and you.
I do not
you
make
do,
fun.
Oh yes, you.
I do not.
Yes,
I've
you
never
do.
made fun of you.
Never.
Well,
I mean, I'm pretty sure in this stream you have.
yeah.
But so the approach, Fire Sue.
Fire
you.
Sue.
Good to see you.
Hello. How y'all
Yeah.
doing? Fire up the barbecue. Yeah.
What?
She's in Texas.
We got Texas emotes. Here.
Texas is in the house.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Texas is in the house.
I don't know.
Is that even relevant nowadays? Probably not.
But it's there. Go, it's in the chat. Texas in the chat for everyone from Texas joining us. So I have a very strong aversion for release planning. Like that has bothered me for
BS.
years.
You did rolling wave release planning
Exactly.
at the dude.
Exactly.
We're talking about static release planning
static release
versus
planning.
rolling wave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we don't all right, so it's just the frequency.
Yeah. So I try and abstract that challenge away from that hard date by not doing. We're gonna get together once.
Okay.
And we're going to pick a date,
Yep,
and then we're going to blindly march to that.
Okay.
Like, I don't let that happen. I don't let that happen by having a frequent update to that forecast. And I'm very specific about referring to everything as a forecast. I don't use the word plan just because I'm unwilling to provide that thing for people to latch onto. So I talk about, it's just like here on the East Coast, hurricanes are a thing. So everybody's comfortable when I use this. Like, they're going to forecast the path of Hurricane Bob, and we know tomorrow morning we're 95% sure where Hurricane Bob's going to go. But by midweek next week, it could go one of these 35 ways, and they have these 35 different models that show which way it could go. But they say, hey, guess what? By midweek next week, we'll have a better idea of where it's going to be, and we'll be able to tell you if your neighborhood's in trouble or not. So that's how I do that. PSI, as Fire Sue says, is I don't even like Safe's approach of doing it once a quarter. I do it once a month because I want to just provide this continually updated forecast of where we're going, what we're doing, because there's so much information that's gained in that month that to me, it's not worth saying we're not going to use that information for another 2 months. We have new information, but we're not going to use it. We're not ready, right? The ceremony's not ready. So there's all of that. Yeah, when the dude was cool. So that's the approach that I do. I don't let it become this big beast. I chop it up into smaller pieces and do it as often as possible and get as responsive as possible in providing new and updated forecasts. And I've found that people actually appreciate the usage of new information and that they can be prepared. Oh, nice, Dave. Yeah, so it gets down to where did that we've been told by June thing. And when stuff like that happens, what I try and do with leaders is say, why? Like, why June? What does June unlock for us? What does it do for us as a business? How can I educate the team on why June is a requirement? Is June actually a requirement, or is it just a thing somebody picked out of thin air? Oftentimes, there's a reason. Sometimes there's not, but oftentimes there's a thing where, hey, let's see. Typical situations where this comes up is, say you're in the IT side of the house and there's a data center move, and you have a contract that expires with your data center provider on June 1st, and if you don't, it's going to cost $200,000 to renew it. Sure, you can go month to month, but the prices are ridiculous. So we really like there's a true business monetary incentive to why we would do everything we can in our power to make that. That doesn't mean you blindly work ridiculous hours to make that happen. You try and figure, oh, okay, so that's our true constraint. Like,
Yeah.
what can we do? I found once you educate the team with that information, they understand the why, and it doesn't feel like an arbitrary thing. Problem solving kicks in. People are connected to the why. They understand how decisions affect
Yep.
the business's ability to operate, as opposed to, oh, the CEO said we have to be done by June. Because he opened his mouth in a board meeting and said this will be done by June, even though we haven't even built the requirements.
So a misnomer of like static release, it's not even static. So if I do quarterly release planning, PI planning, or even just release planning, to me, every 2 weeks you check it.
Mhm.
If you have discovery, you it's not even replan. You make adjustments. Do you know what I'm saying? You're adjusting on your scope. You're adjusting on your understanding. That would actually cause some replanning. Now the rolling wave is sort of a disciplined, sort of tempo-based view.
Yeah.
You're regular doing it, but I do think, like I hope folks don't do release planning and then think that the plan holds together for an entire quarter. It never does, right? It's just sort of a high to mid-level. So I do think good release planning has checkpoints. Do you know what?
Yeah.
Like the Scrum of Scrums, we usually use when I conduct a Scrum of Scrums in an organization, we use the release plan as our discussion vehicle.
Yeah.
So we're not looking at sprint progress like day by day. We're looking at 10 teams. How are we executing towards the plan?
Yeah.
Are we delivering our top highest priority features? Do we have to jettison something? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're not doing rolling wave planning, but you may plan based on what's going on.
Yeah.
Or replan based on what's going on.
Yeah. I find value in the routineness of it.
Yeah, I can see
it's counted on as a leader. I know when to be where. I know when I'm going to get an update.
Well, I think it also
I know how to consume it.
It communicates the risk better, like the triangulation better, right? I do think it's like a clearer representation of, it was just to your point, forecast. It was a forecast. We're triangulating, right?
Yeah. So Sue, that's exciting to hear. It's gonna be slow. And when I first started this at the Dude, everybody hated it. The teams hated it. But after a year and a half, the team really valued it because they understood how it provided clarity into them, into what's coming. They could start to refine things that were 6 sprints out. So it wasn't this issue we had of this just-in-time planning. Like, we got really good at just-in-time planning. So we tried to figure out everything we could do to get us out of that situation, that additional clarity of seeing things coming down the pipe, not having to scramble and figure it out because we're going to do it next sprint. We knew, oh, hey, we're actually going to break this down again a month, and then again a month after that. So that gave teams comfort that, hey, we can see what's coming. We know how to react. We can get all the architectural work in place to support that. We're not scrambling. So it ended up being that both sides got a lot of value out of that.
Brave Dave, I have one reaction that we're developing had so much scope carved off of it that it's the barest minimum package. So we moved the date. One reaction I have is, I think if you would have done adequate release planning, it's going to sound like you didn't, I don't know, but the point of release planning is to triangulate towards, do we have a feasible chunk, is what I'm thinking of. Like, are we in the ballpark in this quarter of hitting the MVP? The fact that you've carved off so much maybe says you didn't understand. So if it's people reducing scope out of changing their mind, then that's different. But if it's scope that's being carved off because we didn't understand it effectively, right? It's internally driven. Then I think the release planning, like maybe doing more spiking before the release planning or doing something like that would concern me. Because release planning should get you, I should be able to triangulate and say, I know you want 10 features, but we can only deliver 5. The team should be able to deliver 5, plus or minus a half or something.
Yeah.
If you go to 1, I don't know if you've done the pre-work is what I'm saying. So you might want to look at like, what pre-work do we do, pre-release plan.
But also I think it's a skill.
Yeah.
Doing that, like one of the new phrases that I just keep saying over and over is, your first is the worst. Right, so that first PSI plan
Can
is
I,
going to
like,
be the worst.
Hold it a second.
Yeah, write that down.
The first is the worst.
The first is the worst.
Okay.
And it's hard. It's not easy, which is why I also appreciate doing it monthly, because you practice. You're forced to practice. I found when you do it quarterly, you do it 4 times a year.
See, that's
you
what
don't get really
when
good.
you said that,
it's hard.
You're actually convincing me that Rolling Wave is even better.
Oh, it is.
I know.
Oh, it's fantastic.
No, but the learning curve is
Yeah.
what I'm with you.
Right.
Like, because it is, tempo does matter. You get better. It's not even release planning. It's preparing for release planning, right?
Right.
It's pre-work. It's
Yeah.
release planning. It's post-work. How do we handle the notifications or changes? Communication. You just get more chances to get better at that.
There's a place I've been helping out for around a year now, and we had our best, they call it BRP, PSI last week.
Yeah.
Why? Because we finally had the product org in a healthy enough place that they could walk in really prepared, really ready to go, really educating the team, and the team had clarity around what was being asked. When I got there was no product team. So like we went from 0 to 60 year, and it's been really exciting to see that formation of the product organization, but also product organization being ready for a big important ceremony like that, and then the value that delivers to the team and upstream to everyone as all those things start to take shape.
Yep.
But it just takes time. So Fire Sue, patient, right? There's a lot of variables that are working against you. Depends on how mature your product team is, how comfortable they are with the ceremony. It's not easy to go and forecast the next 6 sprints or however many you choose to do. So just, the first is the worst. You're just going to do a lot of that. And then just, there's some fear. And so all those things, it just takes time to get through that.
Brave Dave, our director, is going to tell them that they need to stop and they need to get down on the ground with us. I think release planning is that opportunity to get pulled into the weeds or the reality for folks. And that's a good message, I think. Now, not to sit there with you for hours or days or whatever, but we should. So release planning there is no wishful thinking in release planning. There are no ruby slippers. This is where the rubber meets the road and the teams dictate the rubber.
Yeah.
And stakeholders need to react to the rubber, to the teams, right?
And so that's what I did. So myself as the VP of engineering and my peer, the VP of product, after every PSI, we would just stare at the board. And we just kind of like, okay, now what do we do? Like, how do we respond? How do we educate the rest of the organization on this update? What's moved? What are we concerned about? What do we need to get ahead of? So that was our readout of this is the reality. Then it was upon us as leaders to say, okay, what are the things we need to go? What are the knobs we need to start turning? Levers we need to start pulling?
Yep.
That's where we went into action. Like, okay, we have the latest information. Now let's go use it across the rest of the org for good.
Exactly.
And start educating people in all the right ways and start making a difference. So that's
absolutely.
That's a good, healthy response, Brave Dave. That's what you're looking for. It's scary because so many people that are in a role like that have had their hand on the wheel very tightly. You're taking your hand off the wheel and trusting it to that point, like 70 people.
Yeah.
So like, how's that going to go? But that's the life of a coach, right? Think about a sports coach. They're not on the field playing the game.
So like the coach, who is the coach of Ohio State, for example?
Why would we reference that?
I don't know.
You mean Luke Fickell, the head coach of the University of Cincinnati, the number 17 team in the country? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you're right. Luke Fickell cannot go out on the field and play the game. He did. Unfortunately, he did it at Ohio State, but he got smart and came over to the better school in the state of Ohio.
To the Bearcats, baby. Yeah. Okay.
And so now he coaches that. And
I added no value with that comment.
No.
Did I? No.
But that's okay. That's normal.
Yeah.
So he does all of his work Saturday to Saturday. So in the film room, on the practice field, all that stuff. But when it's game time,
it's game time.
It's game time.
And it's up to the teams.
Yeah. And it's how well has he educated the team on the things they need to do. Then it's the players make the plays.
We should reference. Did we ever record the football and peanut butter and jelly thing? Was that ever recorded? That talk we did?
No.
We ought to that's a good talk.
Yeah.
I mean, the principles in there.
Yeah.
That's a good talk. Okay. I think maybe it's time to dust that off a little bit.
Okay.
Because it's timeless.
It is.
Its message is timeless.
It is football season, so it's fresh in people's minds.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough to do it in
late
spring when everybody's thinking about baseball or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm being, there's some really good stuff in there about tempo and the analogies. Okay. Yeah. What do you think?
Like a fork in it?
Well, I think everyone should. So everyone, so you Kazingos, all you Kazingos, I know you all have essential oil candles. So why don't we all turn them out together, okay, to signify the end of this stream. So if you could, pull it up. This candle's for you. And we're done.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, Fire Sue, you're correct. It's for American Boys. Yep, you're right. Thank you for coming. Thank you for engaging. This has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you for everybody. Good to see some folks come back.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the Twitch Prime subscriptions.
You all rock. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, enjoy.